Have you ever felt like life is working against you? Like every time you start to feel secure, something happens to shake your world. A job loss, a heartbreak, an unexpected failure, and suddenly you're left wondering, why is this happening to me? Did I do something wrong? Why does life feel so unfair? What if I told you that suffering is not a punishment, that the pain you experience is not random, but a sign that something deeper is happening? Because here's the truth: pain, loss, and struggle are not here to break you. They are here to teach you. And once you understand why suffering happens, you will never see life the same way again. Buddhism offers a perspective that completely changes how we experience challenges. Instead of resisting pain, we learn to understand it. Instead of fearing change, we embrace it. And instead of asking, "Why me?" we start asking, "What can I learn from this?" So if you've ever struggled with uncertainty, heartbreak, or failure, if you've ever felt lost, stuck, or overwhelmed by life's hardships, then this is for you. By the end of this, you'll have a new way to look at suffering, a new way to find peace, and a new way to free yourself from the cycle of pain. Are you ready to see life differently? Let's begin. The illusion of control: why we struggle against life. Have you ever felt like life refuses to follow your plans? You map out your future, work hard, do everything right. But then, without warning, something happens. The job you counted on doesn't come through. A relationship you thought was solid falls apart. An unexpected crisis throws everything off balance. Suddenly, all your efforts seem pointless, and you're left wondering, why is this happening? Most of us spend our lives trying to control everything: our careers, relationships, finances, even the way people perceive us. We believe that if we just plan carefully enough, if we make the right choices, we can prevent suffering. But no matter how much we try, life remains unpredictable, and the harder we try to control it, the more we suffer. This isn't just a spiritual idea, it's a psychological truth. Research by Dr. Daniel Gilbert, a psychology professor at Harvard, shows that human beings are terrible at predicting what will make them happy. We believe that controlling our circumstances will bring us security, but in reality, our well-being is far more connected to how we adapt to change than to how much control we have. Buddhism teaches that suffering doesn't come from change itself. It comes from our resistance to change. We create rigid expectations about how life should be, and when reality doesn't match those expectations, we feel frustrated, anxious, or even betrayed. But what if the problem isn't life's unpredictability? What if the problem is the way we respond to it? To understand this, let's look at two stories, one ancient, one modern. Over 2,500 years ago, a prince named Siddhartha lived in absolute comfort. His father, the king, tried to control his life completely, shielding him from all suffering. Inside the palace, everything was beautiful, joyful, and secure. The idea was simple: if Siddhartha never saw suffering, he would never feel pain. But when he finally stepped beyond the palace walls, reality hit him. He saw sickness, aging, and death for the first time. And in that moment, he realized something that changed everything. Suffering is not something we can escape through control. It is something we must understand. That realization set him on the path to enlightenment. Fast forward to modern times. Imagine Steve Jobs, a man who built one of the most successful companies in history, Apple. He was at the top of the world, controlling every aspect of his business. Then, unexpectedly, he was fired from his own company. It was a devastating blow, something he never could have predicted. But years later, looking back, he said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." Instead of resisting what happened, he embraced it. He used that time to explore new ideas, leading to the creation of Pixar and the eventual transformation of Apple itself. His greatest setback turned out to be the foundation for his greatest success. These two stories, one ancient, one modern, point to the same truth. When we let go of control, we open ourselves to something greater. The tighter we cling to how we think life should be, the more we suffer. But when we loosen our grip, when we trust the flow of life rather than fight it, we begin to experience peace. Think of a river. If you fight against the current, you exhaust yourself and get nowhere. But if you learn to move with the water, you travel effortlessly. Life works the same way. The more we resist change, the more painful it becomes. The more we accept it, the more we find inner freedom. So the next time life doesn't go as planned, instead of thinking, "This shouldn't be happening," try asking yourself, "What if this is exactly what I need to learn right now?" That single shift in mindset can change everything. Because in the end, peace doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from learning to dance with it. Karma. Do we shape our own destiny? Have you ever looked at your life and wondered, why do some people seem to have everything fall into place while others struggle endlessly? Or maybe you faced a difficult situation and thought, is this happening because of something I did? Many people misunderstand karma. Some think of it as a supernatural force that punishes bad people and rewards good ones, like a cosmic scoreboard keeping track of every action. Others believe it's just another word for fate, that whatever happens is already predetermined, and we have no control over our future. But both of these views miss the deeper truth. Buddhism teaches that karma is not punishment and it's not fate. It's cause and effect. Every action, every thought, word, and choice sets something in motion. Just like planting a seed, what grows in your life depends on what you cultivate. Imagine two people facing the same situation. Both lose their jobs. One falls into despair, blaming the world, feeling helpless, and doing nothing to change their situation. The other, despite feeling the pain of loss, decides to see it as an opportunity to start a new career, develop new skills, or rethink what truly matters. The same event, but two completely different realities, shaped by their mindset and actions. This is how karma works. It's not just about what happens to you, it's about how you respond. Karma is the habits we form, the mindset we cultivate, and the ripple effect of every decision we make. Over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha explained, "Not even the gods can escape the results of their own actions." A famous Buddhist parable illustrates this concept. A man is shot with a poisoned arrow. In pain and panic, he refuses to let the doctor treat him until he knows who shot the arrow, why they shot it, and where the arrow came from. But by the time he gets all the answers he wants, it's too late. The poison has already spread. This story teaches a powerful lesson. We waste so much time asking, "Why is this happening to me?" instead of focusing on, "What can I do next?" We can't always trace back every hardship to a specific past action, but we can always choose how we move forward. Modern psychology echoes this. Dr. Carol Dweck, a Stanford psychologist, has studied the power of a growth mindset, the belief that intelligence, abilities, and circumstances can be improved with effort. Her research shows that people who believe they can shape their future through action are more successful and resilient than those who believe their fate is fixed. Consider Steve Jobs. After being fired from Apple, he could have become bitter and blamed others. But instead, he used that experience to innovate, eventually transforming Apple into one of the most successful companies in the world. His biggest setback became the foundation for his greatest success. Now, imagine an athlete who suffers a career-ending injury. They could give up, or they could adapt, becoming a coach, a mentor, or even a motivational speaker. The injury doesn't define their future, their choices do. So, do we control our own destiny? The answer is both yes and no. We don't control everything that happens to us. There are countless forces beyond our influence. But we do control how we respond, and that response is what truly shapes our lives. If you want to change your future, change the seeds you plant today. Your thoughts, words, and actions are constantly creating the reality you will step into tomorrow. Instead of asking, "What will happen to me?" start asking, "What kind of future am I creating?" Because in the end, karma isn't something happening to you. It's something happening through you. Impermanence, the key to emotional freedom. Have you ever wished that certain moments in life could last forever? The warmth of a perfect day, the security of a stable job, the deep connection of a loving relationship. These are the things we cling to, hoping they will never change. But then, reality sets in, seasons shift, careers take unexpected turns, relationships evolve, and people leave. No matter how tightly we hold on, life keeps moving forward. And yet, we struggle with this truth. We fight against change, longing for permanence in a world where nothing is permanent. But what if the very thing we fear, impermanence, is actually the key to our emotional freedom? Buddhism teaches that everything in life is anicca, impermanent. Nothing stays the same forever. The more we resist this truth, the more we suffer. But when we learn to accept it, we free ourselves from unnecessary pain. As the Buddhist said, whatever is subject to birth is subject to decay. To understand this, let's look at a story from Zen tradition. A young monk once broke a beautiful ceramic teacup. Distraught, he rushed to his master, expecting to be reprimanded. Instead, the master simply smiled and said, "That cup was already broken." At first, the monk was confused. But then he understood. His master had already accepted the cup's impermanence. He had enjoyed it while it lasted, but he never saw it as something permanent. So when it broke, he did not suffer. Modern psychology supports this idea. Dr. Laurie Santos, a professor at Yale, teaches that one of the biggest traps of the human mind is the impact bias, our tendency to overestimate how much future events, both good and bad, will affect our happiness. Research shows that, in both cases, we adjust faster than we expect. No matter what happens, life keeps moving, and so do we. Consider J.K. Rowling. Before she became one of the best-selling authors of all time, she was a struggling single mother living in poverty. At one point, she considered herself a complete failure. But instead of being paralyzed by her situation, she embraced it as an opportunity. In her own words, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." Impermanence applies not just to hardships, but also to our happiest moments. Consider the simple beauty of a sunset. If it lasted forever, would we still find it breathtaking? The fact that it fades makes it special. The same is true for every aspect of life. When we accept that nothing lasts, we stop clinging and start appreciating. So how can we apply this wisdom in our daily lives? When something good happens, cherish it fully, but don't cling to it. Enjoy the present without fearing its end. When something bad happens, remind yourself that this too shall pass. Pain, like everything else, is temporary. When you feel resistance to change, shift your perspective. Instead of mourning what is lost, look forward to what is unfolding. Impermanence is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. It reminds us that nothing is set in stone, that pain will pass, and that every moment, good or bad, is part of the ever-changing flow of life. The sooner we stop fighting against this truth, the sooner we find peace. Because in the end, freedom is not about making things last forever. It's about learning to love them while they are here. The hidden gift of suffering, how pain transforms us. Have you ever gone through something so painful that you thought you'd never recover? Maybe it was a devastating breakup, the loss of a loved one, a financial collapse, or a moment where everything you had built came crashing down. In those moments, it feels impossible to see beyond the pain. It's as if suffering is an enemy, something cruel and unfair that life throws at us for no reason. But what if suffering isn't just something to endure? What if it holds a hidden gift, one that could transform us in ways we never imagined? Buddhism teaches that suffering, dukkha, is an unavoidable part of life. No one escapes it, not even the wealthiest, most powerful, or most enlightened beings. But instead of seeing suffering as meaningless pain, the Buddha taught that it can be a doorway to wisdom, strength, and personal transformation. As he said, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. To understand this, imagine a piece of coal. When placed under intense pressure and heat, it doesn't remain the same. It transforms into a diamond. The same principle applies to us. The struggles we face in life have the power to shape us, making us stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. There's a well-known Buddhist parable about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors came to console him, saying, "What bad luck." But the farmer simply replied, "Maybe, maybe not." A few days later, the horse returned, bringing with it several wild horses. The neighbors now celebrated his fortune, saying, "What great luck." Again, the farmer answered, "Maybe, maybe not." Soon after, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses but fell and broke his leg. The neighbors shook their heads. "What terrible luck." And once again, the farmer said, "Maybe, maybe not." A week later, soldiers came to the village to recruit young men for war, but the farmer's son was spared because of his broken leg. The neighbors were amazed. What a blessing! But the farmer only smiled. "Maybe, maybe not." This story reminds us that we don't always know whether something is truly good or bad in the long run. What seems like suffering today may later reveal itself as a hidden blessing. Modern psychology supports this idea. Dr. Richard Tedeschi, a clinical psychologist, coined the term post-traumatic growth, the idea that people who go through hardship often come out the other side stronger, more resilient, and with a deeper appreciation for life. His research shows that adversity can lead to greater personal strength, a renewed sense of purpose, and even an increased ability to connect with others on a deeper level. Consider Oprah Winfrey. She endured extreme poverty, childhood trauma, and professional setbacks, yet she used her suffering as fuel for growth. She once said, "Turn your wounds into wisdom." Now imagine a war veteran returning home, struggling with PTSD, lost, and disconnected. Many veterans face this reality, but some find strength through their suffering, by helping others, advocating for mental health, or finding new meaning in life. What once seemed like a burden becomes their greatest source of wisdom. Suffering also has a way of breaking down the ego. When everything is going well, we often live in a bubble of comfort, believing we have control over everything. But hardship humbles us. It teaches us that we are not invincible, that we need help, and that we are all connected through our shared struggles. So how can we begin to embrace suffering as a path to growth? Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" Every challenge carries a lesson, even if we don't see it right away. Recognize that pain is temporary. Just as seasons change, our suffering too will pass. Use suffering as a way to develop compassion. The more we understand pain, the more we can connect with and help others who are struggling. Pain is never easy, but when we stop seeing it as an enemy and start seeing it as a teacher, we unlock its hidden gift. Suffering doesn't just break us down. It can break us open, revealing strength, wisdom, and a new way of seeing the world. Because in the end, the deepest growth often comes from the hardest struggles. Finding peace through mindfulness and meditation. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your thoughts, like your mind is constantly racing, replaying past mistakes, worrying about the future, or drowning in endless to-do lists? In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to feel mentally exhausted. trapped in a cycle of stress and anxiety. We often think that peace is something we'll find later, when we achieve success, when we have more time, when everything in life finally falls into place. But what if peace isn't something we have to chase? What if it's something we can access right now, regardless of our circumstances? Buddhism teaches that peace is not about escaping life's problems, but about changing how we relate to them. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is through mindfulness and meditation. As the Buddha said, do not dwell on the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present, paying attention to what is happening right now, without judgment. It's about experiencing life as it unfolds, rather than being lost in thoughts about the past or future. Meditation is a formal way to cultivate mindfulness, training the mind to observe thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. There's a Zen story that illustrates the power of mindfulness. A young monk once asked his master, "What is enlightenment?" The master simply replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The monk was confused. "But isn't that what everyone does?" he asked. The master smiled and said, "No, most people are distracted while eating, thinking about 1,000 things. When they lie down to sleep, their minds are still restless." True mindfulness means fully experiencing each moment as it is. Modern science supports this wisdom. Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, a pioneer in mindfulness research, developed mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, a program that has been shown to reduce anxiety, depression, and even physical pain. Neuroscientific studies reveal that regular meditation literally changes the brain, increasing activity in areas associated with emotional regulation and decreasing stress-related reactivity. Take, for example, Michael Jordan. At the height of his career, he credited mindfulness and meditation as the key to his success, saying, "The game slows down when you learn to be present." Or look at Oprah Winfrey, who has openly shared how meditation helps her stay grounded amidst the pressures of fame and business. She describes mindfulness as the secret to maintaining clarity and purpose in her life. This principle applies to everyday life. When we practice mindfulness, we stop reacting impulsively and start responding with awareness. Instead of being swept away by stress, we learn to pause, observe, and choose how we react. So how can we cultivate mindfulness in our daily lives? Start small. Mindfulness doesn't require hours of meditation. Simply take a few minutes each day to focus on your breath, noticing each inhale and exhale. Practice mindful eating. Instead of rushing through meals while scrolling on your phone, take time to truly taste and appreciate your food. Use the stop technique. Stop what you're doing. Take a deep breath. Observe your thoughts and emotions. Proceed with awareness. Ultimately, mindfulness and meditation remind us of something profound. Peace is not something we find in the future. It's something we cultivate in the present. No matter how busy, stressed, or uncertain life becomes, we always have access to the stillness within us. Because in the end, true peace isn't about changing our circumstances. It's about changing how we experience them. The art of letting go. Why clinging creates suffering. Have you ever felt like the harder you try to hold on to something, the more it slips away? Maybe it's a relationship you don't want to end, a career you've built for years, or even an image of yourself that you can't bear to lose. We cling to people, success, material things, and even ideas, believing that if we just hold on tightly enough, we can make them last forever. But life doesn't work that way. No matter how much we resist, things change. People leave. Opportunities fade. Nothing stays the same. And yet, instead of accepting this truth, we fight against it, desperately trying to control what is ultimately uncontrollable. This is where suffering begins. Buddhism teaches that attachment, tanha, or craving, is one of the primary causes of suffering. The Buddha described it as trying to grasp water in our hands. The tighter we squeeze, the faster it slips through our fingers. He once said, "You only lose what you cling to." There's a Buddhist parable that illustrates this well. A monkey sees a jar filled with peanuts. He reaches in and grabs a handful, but when he tries to pull his hand out, he realizes that his fist is too big to fit through the jar's opening. The only way to free himself is to let go of the peanuts. But the monkey refuses. He clings to them, believing that he must have them. In the end, his attachment traps him. We are often like that monkey. We hold on to things, relationships, and identities, even when they cause us pain. We believe that letting go means losing something, when in reality, letting go is what sets us free. Modern psychology supports this idea. Dr. Stephen Hayes, the founder of Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, ACT, explains that psychological suffering often comes from our unwillingness to accept change. His research shows that those who learn to detach from rigid expectations and embrace uncertainty experience lower levels of anxiety and greater well-being. Take, for example, Jim Carrey, one of the most successful comedians of all time. At the peak of his fame, he realized that no amount of money or success could bring him lasting happiness. He once said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." Or consider a woman going through a painful divorce. At first, she clings to the idea of the life she had planned, unable to accept the loss. But as she learns to let go, she discovers something unexpected: freedom. She finds new passions, deepens her relationships, and embraces a future she never could have imagined. So how can we practice the art of letting go in our daily lives? Recognize impermanence. Remind yourself that everything is temporary. Both joy and sorrow will pass. Loosen your grip. When you notice yourself clinging to something, ask, "Am I holding on because I truly need this, or because I'm afraid of losing it?" Practice gratitude instead of attachment. Enjoy things while they last, but don't let your happiness depend on them staying the same. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or not caring. It means trusting life enough to allow it to flow naturally, without resistance. It means understanding that true freedom comes not from controlling everything, but from embracing the beauty of change. Because in the end, happiness is not about holding on. It's about learning how to let go. Everything is connected. The power of compassion. Have you ever felt deeply moved by a stranger's kindness? Maybe someone helped you when you least expected it, holding a door open, offering words of encouragement, or simply giving you a warm smile on a difficult day. In those moments, something powerful happens. You feel seen. You feel connected. And for a brief instant, the weight of the world feels a little lighter. But what if this feeling of connection wasn't just a passing moment? What if it was a truth that governs everything? Buddhism teaches that interconnectedness is at the heart of existence. The idea is simple: nothing exists in isolation. Every action we take, no matter how small, ripples outward, affecting people and events in ways we may never fully understand. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the emotions we share, all are intertwined in a vast web of life. The Buddha once said, as a mother would protect her only child with her life, so too should one cultivate boundless love towards all beings. A powerful Buddhist story illustrates this truth. A woman named Kisa Gautami lost her only child and was consumed by grief. Desperate to bring her child back to life, she went to the Buddha for help. He told her, "Go to every house in the village and find a mustard seed from a home that has never known death." Hopeful, she knocked on every door. But in each home, she found the same story. Every family had lost someone they loved. Slowly, she understood. Suffering is universal, and she was not alone. This realization did not erase her pain, but it softened it. By recognizing her shared humanity, she found the strength to let go of her grief and open her heart to others. Modern science supports this idea. Dr. Keltner, a professor at UC Berkeley and an expert on compassion, has studied how human connection affects the brain. His research shows that when we practice compassion, our bodies release oxytocin, a hormone that reduces stress and increases feelings of trust and bonding. Compassion isn't just a spiritual concept, it's wired into our biology. Think about the story of Fred Rogers, the beloved TV host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. For decades, he taught children the power of kindness, telling them, if you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to people you may never even dream of. Or consider a nurse working long hours in an emergency room, comforting patients in their most vulnerable moments. She may never know the full impact of her kindness, but her compassion ripples outward, touching countless lives. So how can we cultivate compassion in our daily lives? Practice mindful listening. When someone speaks, don't just wait for your turn to talk. Truly hear them. Offer small acts of kindness. A simple thank you, a helping hand, or a kind word can change someone's day. Expand your circle of concern. Compassion is easy for those we love, but what about strangers, or even those we dislike? True compassion sees beyond differences. Compassion is not just about being nice. It is a radical act of seeing ourselves and others, of recognizing that we rise and fall together. Because in the end, when we realize that everything is connected, kindness is no longer a choice, it's a way of life. The power of patience and trust. How to stop fighting life. Have you ever felt like life isn't moving fast enough? Maybe you've worked hard, but success still seems out of reach. Or you've been waiting for the right relationship, the right opportunity, or the right moment, but it never seems to come. In these moments, frustration builds. We feel stuck, powerless, and restless. We live in a world that glorifies speed. We want instant success, quick results, and immediate answers. But life doesn't always follow our timeline. The more we resist its natural flow, the more we suffer. Buddhism teaches that patience, khanti, and trust, saddha, are essential qualities for a peaceful and fulfilling life. Patience is the ability to endure difficulties without frustration, while trust is the deep confidence that things will unfold as they should. Together, they help us navigate uncertainty with grace. As the Buddhist said, a jug fills drop by drop. There's an old Buddhist parable about a farmer who was impatient with his crops. He wanted them to grow faster, so every day, he would go to the fields and pull on the young plants, hoping to speed up the process. But instead of helping, he only damaged them. The more he interfered, the more harm he caused. Eventually, his impatience ruined the very thing he was trying to cultivate. This story reminds us that some things in life cannot be rushed. Just like a tree grows at its own pace, our personal growth, relationships, and dreams unfold in their own time. The key is to stop forcing and start trusting. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Dr. Angela Duckworth, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, studied highly successful people and found that their greatest strength wasn't talent, intelligence, or luck, it was grit. Grit is the combination of perseverance and patience, the ability to keep going even when results don't come right away. Consider Steve Jobs, who was fired from Apple, the company he founded. He could have given up, but instead, he trusted the process. He later said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward, so you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." Or think about an Olympic athlete who trains for years, enduring setbacks, injuries, and grueling routines, all for a moment that lasts only a few minutes. If they focused only on immediate results, they would have quit long before reaching their dream. Their success comes from patience, trust, and showing up every day, even when they don't see progress. So how can we cultivate patience and trust in our own lives? Shift your focus from results to effort. Instead of asking, "Why hasn't it happened yet?" ask, "Am I showing up and doing my part?" Practice mindful waiting. When you feel impatience rising, take a breath and remind yourself, everything has its time. Let go of the illusion of control. Trust that what is meant for you will come, and what is not will pass. Patience and trust don't mean passivity. They mean learning to work with life rather than against it. When we stop resisting and start embracing the journey, we discover something profound. Life unfolds perfectly, not according to our timeline, but according to its own wisdom. Turning obstacles into opportunities, the Buddhist mindset. Have you ever faced a setback so big that you felt like giving up? Maybe it was a failed business, a broken relationship, a health crisis, or a dream that slipped away just as you were reaching for it. In those moments, it's easy to feel stuck, defeated, and even hopeless. But what if obstacles aren't here to break us, but to shape us? What if every difficulty is actually an invitation for growth, a doorway to something greater? Buddhism teaches that obstacles are not barriers. They are the path itself. Life doesn't always go according to our plans, but that doesn't mean we're on the wrong path. It just means we're being given an opportunity to evolve. As the Buddha said, just as a lotus grows in the mud, so too can we rise through difficulties. A Zen story illustrates this beautifully. A student once asked his master, "How can I progress on the path to enlightenment?" The master replied, "Have you ever faced a great challenge?" The student nodded. "That is your path," the master said. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Buddhism encourages us to ask, "What is this teaching me?" Obstacles teach us resilience. A tree that grows on a mountainside faces strong winds and rocky soil. Yet because of these challenges, its roots grow deeper, making it stronger than trees in a sheltered valley. Our struggles shape us in the same way. Many people who experience major setbacks, such as losing a job, later realize that it led them to a more fulfilling path. Sometimes, what feels like a loss is actually a redirection. Much of our suffering comes from wanting things to be a certain way. But life has its own rhythm. When we learn to accept uncertainty, we become less anxious and more open to new possibilities. Modern psychology supports this perspective. Dr. Richard Tedeschi, a clinical psychologist, coined the term post-traumatic growth, the idea that people who go through hardships often emerge stronger, wiser, and with a greater sense of purpose. His research shows that challenges can lead to greater appreciation for life, stronger relationships, a clearer sense of purpose, and increased inner strength. Many great figures embody this mindset. Consider J.K. Rowling, who was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter became a worldwide phenomenon. Or Thomas Edison, who failed 1,000 times before successfully inventing the light bulb. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Or think about a marathon runner who collapses from exhaustion but refuses to quit. Or a single mother who turns her struggles into strength, building a better future for her children. The moment we stop resisting obstacles and start embracing them, they become opportunities for transformation. So how can we apply this mindset in our own lives? Instead of seeing a setback as a roadblock, we can ask, how can this make me stronger? When something doesn't go as planned, we can practice radical acceptance and stop fighting reality. When we let go of resistance, we free up energy to respond wisely. It may sound strange, but challenges often contain hidden blessings. Some of the most profound moments of growth in life come from the most painful experiences. No matter how dark the storm, the sun will rise again. And when it does, you'll realize that the storm wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to clear the path for something new. Because in the end, obstacles don't block the path. They are the path. How to live with wisdom, peace, and freedom. Life is constantly changing, full of joys and sorrows, successes and failures, beginnings and endings. No matter how much we try to control it, uncertainty is inevitable. We chase security, but things fall apart. We seek happiness, but suffering finds its way in. The more we resist the nature of life, the more we struggle. But within this impermanence lies an opportunity, the chance to cultivate wisdom, peace, and freedom, not by escaping life's challenges, but by changing how we experience them. Wisdom is not about knowing all the answers, but about seeing reality clearly. It is understanding that suffering arises when we cling to things that are impermanent and beyond our control. We grasp at relationships, status, possessions, and even identities, believing they will bring us lasting happiness. But just like trying to hold water in our hands, the tighter we squeeze, the faster it slips away. A wise person does not ask, "How can I make life go my way?" but rather, "How can I align myself with the natural flow of life?" The moment we stop resisting, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding. True peace is not found in avoiding difficulties, but in developing equanimity, the ability to remain steady no matter what arises. When we stop seeking happiness in external circumstances and instead cultivate it from within, we discover a peace that is unshaken by life's ups and downs. Meditation is a key practice in this journey, teaching us to observe thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. The breath becomes an anchor, reminding us that each moment is new and filled with the potential to meet life with awareness rather than reactivity. As the Buddha said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." Freedom is not the absence of problems, but the ability to live without fear, attachment, or regret. It is the realization that we are not bound by our past, nor are we trapped by the expectations of society. True freedom comes when we let go of the illusion of control and surrender to life as it unfolds. It does not mean passivity. Rather, it means engaging with life fully, without being enslaved by desires, fears, or the need for constant validation. The river does not fight against its flow. It simply moves forward, carving its own path. We, too, can learn to navigate life with the same openness. So how do we live with wisdom, peace, and freedom? The path begins with small, intentional shifts. When faced with challenges, instead of reacting with frustration, we can pause and ask, "What is this moment teaching me?" When caught in negative thoughts, we can step back and remind ourselves that they are not reality, just passing clouds in the sky of the mind. When we feel restless or anxious, we can return to the present moment, grounding ourselves in the breath. And most importantly, we can practice kindness, not only toward others, but toward ourselves. The goal is not to eliminate suffering, but to move through it with grace, to let go of what weighs us down, and to open ourselves to the profound joy of simply being. Because in the end, wisdom is not about having a perfect life, peace is not about the absence of chaos, and freedom is not about having no responsibilities. They are ways of seeing, ways of being, and ways of living that allow us to experience the beauty of life exactly as it is. This is just the beginning, walking the path with awareness. Everything we've explored in this journey leads to one fundamental truth. Peace, wisdom, and freedom are not destinations. They are not things you acquire, nor goals you check off a list. They are ways of being, ways of seeing, and ways of living. And right now, in this very moment, you have a choice. You can continue carrying the weight of the past, resisting what is, and fearing the unknown, or you can let go. You can choose to step into the flow of life, to embrace its uncertainty, and to trust that you already have everything you need within you. Imagine waking up tomorrow and no longer being controlled by fear, regret, or the constant need for things to be different. Imagine moving through life with a lightness in your heart, a clarity in your mind, and a deep trust that everything is unfolding as it should. But don't just imagine it, feel it now. Take a deep breath. Let go, even if just for a moment. This is freedom, and the more you choose it, the more it becomes your reality. This path isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up every day with awareness, compassion, and an open heart. And the most beautiful part? You are not walking it alone. There is a whole community of seekers, just like you, exploring, learning, and growing. If this message resonated with you, imagine how many others need to hear it too. Share it with someone who may need this reminder today. And if you're ready to go deeper, to continue this journey with us, join our community. Subscribe for more insights, reflections, and practices that will help you walk this path with clarity and strength. And if you're looking for your next step, watch this video on related topic. It will help you integrate these teachings into your daily life in a powerful way. Because in the end, wisdom is not about knowing, it's about living. And your journey is just beginning.